Okay, good afternoon. So I'm at Quo Vadis and I'm here with one of my favourite winemakers, a wonderful family from New Zealand, a place called Nelson, and the vineyard is called Neudorf. This is Tim and Judy Finn, and I'm sitting here enjoying a glass of Chardonnay with Judy Finn, and I'm just going to have a quick chat with her. So Judy, welcome to London. Welcome back, let's say. The last time I saw you was last year when I visited your vineyards in the Upper Moutere. So tell us a little bit about your wines and Neudorf, and it's your 30th anniversary this year, isn't it?
It is. We just finished our 30th vintage, so that's quite an achievement because New Zealand's a very young winemaking country. We planted our grapes in 1978 and our first vintage was in 1981, 82, it depends whether, because that first vintage is always such a small one. So we're lucky enough to be in the UK with our distributors here, Richard Wolford, who are lovely people. And we've just come from Denver. We've been in America for the High End Initiative, which is a New Zealand government initiative to try and break the glass ceiling that Antipodean wines have in America, that they are regarded as good drinking wines but perhaps not in fine restaurants, unlike the UK, where I think every fine restaurant in the UK would probably consider it as essential to have at least one New Zealand wine on their list, if not a selection of whites and reds. But that hasn't happened in the States, and so this initiative is to try and break that glass ceiling. And that was very successful.
How are New Zealand wines in the US?
They're doing okay, but they're kind of locked into a Sauvignon Blanc area and they're locked into a price area. And so this initiative was about taking wines that were ultra premium wines, that were expensive wines, that belonged in what you call, restaurants, white linen tablecloth restaurants. And if we've got 2 years, we've set ourselves 2 years, and at the end of that 2 years, we would like to think that every fine restaurant in Australia, in America, should have at least one New Zealand wine, preferably one white and one red, on their list. So you ask us a question in two years' time, we'll see whether we've been successful.
So you're educating them about Chardonnay and Pinot and
that is
Riesling
so right.
and your wonderful,
Exactly.
beautiful wines.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Neudorf and about your wines.
Well, I guess when you're trying to sort of encapsulate what we do, our wines, we're always pursuing texture. That's our big thing, texture over flavour. It's very easy in the new world with our climate to produce huge flavours, but we're trying to tame that down to give you a textural interest and some subtlety and elegance as well. And refreshingness. The big thing we feel with wine is it should always be refreshing. You should always feel like I could have another glass. And so often with these big, highly flavourful wines, they're exhausting. You don't want any more. And I think that's something where I look to the old world with great respect. They do that so well. We've got a lot to learn.
You're right. Your wines age beautifully as well. I'm enjoying at the moment a glass of 01 Moutere Chardonnay, and it's still as fresh and balanced and beautiful as ever. So your wines have great aging potential, and also with your Pinots as well. So tell us a little bit about the philosophy with terms of the aging potential of your wines.
I guess in that you'd probably look to our climate, because we have a cool climate. We don't have very hot days and we have cool nights, so you get very long, slow development of flavours, and those cool nights mean we usually have quite high acidity, and so when you've got elegant flavours and some high acidity, you've got the basis of the potential to age, I think. Also, we're very hands-off. We do. I know it's a bit of an. Everyone says great wines are made in the vineyard, but the reason everyone says it is it's probably is true. But in the winery, we try to. Basically, our philosophy is we shouldn't be buggering it up. We should be taking beautiful grapes and having a very hands-off method of turning that into wine, and letting the wine be elegant. And we don't try. Our wines are non-interventionist. We're not throwing a lot of tricks at it. Not throwing huge amounts of oak and the classic winemaker tricks. So yeah, it's simple. It's very simple.
Well, the wines are very elegant, and I've tasted upstairs some wonderful aged Rieslings going back a few years, and I'm a big fan of Riesling in particular, and I think Nelson is a good spot for Riesling in particular. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, and I think that Riesling is such a beautiful, beautiful wine, and of all the wines that we make, I think Riesling speaks of place so much, and some of the older vines where the roots are down at 15 feet, and they're starting to get into those lovely old gravelly ancient soil systems down there. And when you see these the roots sort of breaking apart the clay and breaking apart the gravels, and they're really sucking up that basic soil, and that's what you taste in the wine, that lovely, that wonderful, I don't know, what is it? It's that refreshing, stony minerality which makes Riesling so poised. And with the coolness, you get that tension between the minerality and then the sweetness because of the sun. We have very little humidity, very little pollution in New Zealand, and there's two downsides to that. It sounds like a good thing. We get skin cancer, and sometimes we've got to fight that ability for the grapes to become sunburnt themselves, I think. So there's always trying to just keep the temperature, to control that, to produce lower alcohol wines, because the sun produces more sugars, and so you can end up with very high alcohol wines, and we don't want to do that. So we're quite pleased our Moutere Riesling, comes in at about 9%, which is that's nice.
It's very nicely balanced, isn't it? But it has the aging potential, it has the fruit, it has the acidity, and very food friendly. I think the aromatic varietals, in particular Pinot Gris, Riesling, Gewürztraminer, they're very food friendly wines.
Totally.
And every couple of years you have the Nelson Aromatic Symposium in there, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
So that's a bit of a feature, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. We've had some great speakers there. We have had Olivia Holmbrook and Jeff Grossett have both come out to speak at those symposiums, and that's a way of exploring some of the attributes of the area, and maybe just putting our hand up and saying this might be an area where we can do something quite special. And certainly looking at the winemakers in Nelson and what they're producing in Pinot Gris and Gewürztraminer, beautiful Gewürztraminers, and Riesling. Yeah, it bodes well for the area.
I think your wines are very food friendly in general. I think they deserve to be in top restaurants and appreciated by wine lovers and connoisseurs, and they are very food friendly wines, in particular the Chardonnays and the Pinots. Can you talk a little bit more about the Pinots?
Yeah, well, our Pinot is always, in the end, you make the wine that you like to drink, and we like Pinots that are less fruit driven, but more about structure and more about not whether savoury is the right word, but certainly getting into that wood, that forest floor sort of character, meaty, visceral sort of notes, which are so wonderful with meats and truffles and rosemary and rabbit and olive oil and all those wonderful things. And they're perhaps not the most upfront Pinot. So there's the wonderful fruity Pinots are glorious to have as an aperitif. But I love the way that in the wine world you can't make generalisations are no longer appropriate. So New Zealand Pinot isn't one sort, and I would drink those fruity Pinots in a different way than the ones that I would have at a meal. So it's the same with Sauvignon Blanc. There are beautiful Sauvignon Blancs that are refreshing, that you might have at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon when you've finished mowing the lawns. That's not going to be the same Sauvignon Blanc that you have with a goat cheese tart. So you've got to pick your wine. And New Zealand is offering all of those different styles now. It's not just one straight style of Sauvignon or Pinot or Chardonnay.
That's right. There's a big diversity now with New Zealand wines, and also expression and regionality, which is coming through now. It was a great pleasure to come over and visit you last year when I came over to New Zealand last year, and I spent some time over there, and I had the great pleasure to meet you and to visit you at your vineyards. And it's a wonderful pleasure, of course, to have you over in London and to see you again and to taste your wines and to celebrate with you your 30th anniversary. I've been a big fan of your wines for many years, and it's just a wonderful occasion to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.